What do you think of Warner? Do you like Bruce Warner?
I don't know well enough to say I like him or dislike him, but I think he was put there on purpose to do a specific job.
I think the man is smoother than is Mr. Smooth. I mean, this guy's smooth. What do you think?
I think he was put there to do a specific job, and I'm not sure I'm going to be happy with the job that he was put there to do.
Yeah, I've watched multiple board presidents. This guy is definitely the most polished of the board. I mean, Passador is obviously a dick. Okay, I'll say it publicly. He was obviously a bank president. You know what I mean? He didn't take no shit. He'd roll you out of order. He wouldn't think twice. You know, Van Beveren, he was basically a nice guy, I think, but he knew what he had to do. You know what I mean? He had to follow.
You know what Van Beveren's biggest problem was? And he and I had a private conversation, and his biggest problem was he liked Neil McFarlane, which I could never figure out
really?
why.
He did. That's interesting. But I think Rick was basically a nice guy. I get the feeling. I get the feeling he was basically a nice guy. And the couple times that I went to the board, he actually tried to respond to me a little. He actually tried to answer me. And I think he tried. He had some heart. I really believe that Van Beveren had some heart in there, even though he couldn't show it because he has to toe the Trimet.
And he liked Neil, so
he did like Neil. What do you think? So you know Neil personally? You've met with him a few times?
Not really.
No, you have not met with Neil personally.
Jan and I both used to try to meet with Neil back in the days I talked about earlier, when we were both on chair and vice chair, and when we were on the Citizens Advisory Committee, and we always found him standoffish.
Oh, so he wouldn't meet with you?
He couldn't get away from us fast enough. I see. He wouldn't talk to us, and if he wouldn't talk to us, how's he going to fix anything?
Yeah, that's true. I always liked Fred, because I always thought Fred, even though he was, but he was personable.
Fred was personal, and you could get a meeting with Fred.
Right, Fred would talk to you. That's right.
Fred would talk to you.
He would bullshit you up the ass, but he would talk.
He would talk to you.
I'm glad you had the same experience.
I mean,
and compared to Neil, from my point of view, Fred was much better. I mean, he believed in free speech and all. I never had any of the problems I had when Fred was head of the place and what happened after Neil. I mean, there was a real difference in philosophies. I mean, from my point of view as a blogger, internal blogger, I never had a problem with anything I was doing while Fred was in charge. As soon as that changed, there was a problem. I mean, immediately, I know that Neil directed Shelley and Hayden to do something about it. It must have been them, because they were already here. It had to come from Neil.
Shelley Lomax, when I was on contract, she was one of the 3 garage managers.
I thought she was a good manager. I just dealt with her when she was a Center Street.
Well, out of the 3 garage managers, when I was trying to help Trimet accept disability awareness to the degree of working with people with disabilities and understanding, out of the 3 garage managers, she was the worst.
Oh, really? You thought that, huh?
Yep.
Why do you think that? I thought she was...
Well, because she didn't seem to want to cooperate, and no matter what I said, she would stand up for the operators.
See, I would appreciate that.
But nobody was trying to crucify her. We were trying to get the awareness across.
I always found Shelley, from my experience with Aqua, very fair when she was a station manager.
Loving your job.
Okay, and I supported her as director, whatever the hell she is,
executive director of operations.
But compared to Steve Bannon, she's terrible. You know, I thought Steve Bannon was good. You thought he was terrible, but I thought
Bob Nelson was great.
I didn't know Bob Nelson. And I barely knew Clyde Earl.
I barely knew Clyde Earl. I knew Bob Nelson.
I knew Clyde Earl enough that he cooperated with me when I had issues. He listened to my issues.
And the worst part was...
And I loved Peggy Hansen. I thought she was the greatest director of transportation they had. And a lot of people think I'm not crazy, but...
I thought Peggy... I worked with Peggy a lot when I was on contract, when she was an assistant manager of field operations. And I thought she was fantastic. How do I say this? I think she got a swollen head as she moved up the ladder, and I don't think she was as effective as she was back when she was an assistant.
You think so? I find her I thought that she was very human. I'm telling you my experience with Peggy. Very human and very good. Listen,
Peggy and I took a drive to Eugene to meet with Lane Transit the day that she found out officially that she was getting promoted to manager of field operations. So I mean, I've spent some time with. With
she's a brilliant woman. She really is a brilliant woman. You have to, you know, she really has a mind.
Well, again, I was very impressed with her. I thought that we worked well together. But as she started moving up the chain,
she started getting.
I think she got a bit of a swollen head, and I don't think she was near as effective as back when I first met her.
Okay, that's your. Yeah. Well, I didn't know her much until she became director of operations. What do they call it? Director of operations?
Yeah, she was director of operations.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything to do with her until that point. And as the director of operations, I thought she did. Well, Michael Ford, I thought he was ignorant. Okay, that's my opinion.
Actually, Michael was, in my opinion, Michael had his hands tied.
He has what?
He had his hands tied.
Okay.
He wasn't given any authority.
I see.
He was micromanaged way too much by Fred, and as much as I like Bob Nelson, I don't think Bob Nelson gave Michael enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, would Michael have done a great job if he would have been given the freedom? I don't know. But I think he was smarter than people gave him credit for, and I don't think he was given a fair opportunity. And I think he should have been given the rope. Whether he ran with it or hung himself would have been up to him.
That's interesting, because he did try to listen. He did listen to me. I will say that he did.
I spent a lot of time with Michael too. I really did. Again, he managed my contract, and I spent a lot of time with him.
I had nothing against the man personally, but I think that the letters I got back from him were a little bit. I don't know what to say.
And Trimet has a great way of tainting people. There are a lot of people that, and I'm not sure if I'm going to mention names, but as I ramble, I may. There are a lot of people that I used to like a whole lot more years ago. And as the years have gone by, I feel like they've become tainted, and I don't have as much respect for them. I think Trimet has a way of tainting good people.
I think it might be
a Trimet mold that needs to be broken.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think McFarland is really. It used to be a progressive agency. I really believe that the progressive agency was there. Trimet was a real model. I mean, I really believe it. It was a real model. And in some ways it still is. But with McFarland in charge, it's regressing into this, you know, do what I do what I tell you to do. Don't think anything negative, because we're not going to take it. I mean, this is what I see now. I mean, I've seen 3 directors. I saw Walsh, who was a great guy. Okay, Walsh, I thought, always had the open door policy. He's a great guy. He's a humanist, a very human. He had that human side. I saw Fred, although he was Fred was all about Fred, but he still had a human side to him.
He did have a human side. Right. He was about Fred.
He's happy that
Fred was a politician.
Yes, he was but he had a human side.
Yes, he did. He did.
Right, like you said, you could get in to see him, and he would listen. But he did anything with, but Neil is not. Neil is not. He's a technocrat. He is. When you say technocrat, Neil McFarland.
Leaders of the disability community shortly after. There were a couple of leaders, which Jan Campbell was one, which is, I'm not going to go any further, but she got in. And then Jan and a couple of others of us tried to get in, and we couldn't get in to see him.
I see.
Couldn't get in.
And Jan Campbell, who was she?
Jan is still the chair cat. Jan Campbell was chair.
That was your ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.